Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In Podcast. This week we're at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Last event, 2023. We got UFC 296, both the 125 and 170-pound strap up for grabs. Our main event, Leon Edwards looking to make another title defense there of his welterweight belt against none other than Colby Chaos Covington. In the co-main event, man, new champion Alexandre Pantoja looking to make his first title defense against Brandon Royval. Really, really excited for that one. It's a loaded pay-per-view. I think we're at 13 fights now after losing Ian Gary, unfortunately. Still, good positive year for us both, but we are trying to climb out of a little rut, looking in the year strong, man. I'll go ahead and pass it over to you. What was kind of another forgettable night for us both.
Yeah, the slump continues for sure. We'll take a look over at your card first. You had a parlay between Song and Tatsuro Taira. I thought that was a really good bet. You had to lay a little bit on it, minus 175, but I do think that was a really good bet. One of the guys that got us both was Kenan Song. You played it a little bit differently with a plus 3.5. Turns out it didn't matter. That dude was a knockout or bust, and I think that he kind of showed that in the fight. Let's see, and then Smith wins inside the distance. Dude, I mean, the price was there. Plus 300, yeah. The price was there. But I don't know, dude. I think that he should start to reevaluate his fighting career for sure. He didn't have much played on this card, so it was only minus 2.1 units. Definitely not too bad. Not as bad as my night. Looking over at mine, both. I had a straight bet on Kenan Song. And then, to be honest with you, man, I think I was absolutely robbed. First fight of the night with Ariane Amanda. I thought she won that fight. I really did. Yeah. I thought that she did enough, and I don't know. I think that set the tone for the night. So I was happy that towards the end with Sumu Darji and Tim Elliott, I hit the under there, and then Malarkey Hack Parast at plus money. I hit that as well. But it was a tough night. I had a lot in that Amanda fight. I thought if Talita Alencar was going to have success, she was going to get that takedown early and maybe find a sub. And then I thought after that first round, Amanda was piecing her up. I thought that the TKO in round 2 and 3 was live. And I know we both had some change on it. It would have been a really big hit for us, but it just did not come to fruition. So I ended up minus 5.25 units on the night. Definitely a forgettable night. Hoping I can get out of this with the one last card of the year. Sure. Let's see. Moving over to our first fight of the night. It starts in the welterweight division where we see Randy Brown taking on Muslim Salikhov. Funny enough, this is only the second time that Salikhov has been the underdog in his UFC career. He's 1-2 in his last 3, and he's approaching that 40 years of age. So it's not a surprise that he's lost some steam with these odds makers. That being said, I think that he's a really good fighter, man. It's just who he's been matched up with recently and his age that's, I don't know, like I said, just kind of like giving everybody a lost hope in him as a fighter. Whereas Randy Brown, I've never been a huge fan of him. I was backing Wellington Turman in that last fight, and all bias aside, I don't think that Randy Brown covered his price tag, and I think that he is he constantly does that. He's either talking too much or he isn't defensively sound enough, and I never want to lay this minus. I think it was like minus 270, something like that, on Brown in any fight, much less this one. I think that this might be a buy low spot for Salikhov. Like I said, he's not on this underdog position very often, and when he is, I do think that he ended up winning. It was against Nordine Talib. In his only fight that he was an underdog against Nordine Talib, he gets the overhand right in the first round. So I think that this is another buy low spot. Randy Brown, not defensively sound. I'm kind of looking at a Salikhov play, but it's not something I have a lot of conviction with. So maybe you can help me out. What are you thinking?
I'm on the other side here. And at minus 190 earlier in the week, I actually was considering a pretty good bet on Randy. But now almost minus 300. I laid off solely because of the point you brought up, and it's the fact that he struggles to cover the price tag pretty much every single time. But I do agree he should be the rightful favorite here. I think he's a guy who's still in his prime, improving as a fighter. I really like the way he can keep that, his range. He fights very long. And I feel like the way Muslim fights, he doesn't throw 2-3 punch combinations to get on the inside. He's one of these single shot guys from the outside with low volume. I don't think it's going to be enough to close the distance on Randy Brown to be able to land his shots. I think Randy Brown can sustain a pace at a lot higher volume, a lot longer here. I'm coming off of fading Muslim with Nicholas Dalby, so kind of some bias, I guess, still toward him. I feel Muslim's, getting up there in age, like you said. I'm not really sold on the cardio. And I do think he's real low volume, throws one shot at a time, and a lot of those shots do require a ton of energy, which is one of the reasons that gas tank is slipping here lately. So I'm on the Randy Brown side, man, but at the minus like 270, 290 price range, forced me to lay off. Moving on to the big boys, man. Heavyweight fight. We got Shamil Gaziev versus Martin Buday. It's the first bet on the card for me. I got 1.5 units on Buday. Honestly, I thought the line was going to move the other way. I got it at minus 175. You can since now get him around minus 135, minus 140. I'm willing to accept that this fight could be hairy early on, but I think there's such a massive discrepancy in cardio that I'm willing to take the gamble here. Gaziev, he's a guy that, man, if the finish isn't coming in the first 3 minutes, the wheels are going to fall off. You see his Dana White Contender Series interview, the fight lasts like 2.5 minutes, and I mean, he has nothing left. And even at points in that fight, he was on bottom. He got his back taken. I really do feel like Martin Buday is going to just walk this guy down. The forward pressure is going to get to him, put Gaziev on the fence like he does best. I really like his work in the clinch, the dirty boxing, the knees he has to the midsection. And I do think there's a chance he winds up on top himself. I see a lot of people on Gaziev this week, and, it is some lower level heavyweights. You are getting an undefeated Russian. But, man, I can't overlook the fact that I think after 3 minutes of a fight, this starts to swing massively in the favor of Martin Buday. So I like my bet on him this week, man. I'm tempted to double down. I'm looking at that maybe round 3 decision for Martin Buday, which will be sitting around plus money or something.
I think you're going to be clinching for those first 2 rounds, the heavyweights at the end of the day. I think I'm with you on the Martin Buday side. I've backed him a couple of times, hit a really good decision prop a couple fights back. And, like you said, this could be a spot where he is able to get that decision. We've seen Gaziev go 3 rounds before, and, he doesn't give up. Like, I think that that's something that's definitely good, but there are a ton of unanswered questions as far as what caliber fighter he can, get that quick offense on, and if he can finish fighters. Buday, great chin. He's known to just be able to take the hardest shots and just eats them. So if Gaziev is able to get some offense going, I definitely expect him to shoot or to pursue a submission rather than trying to pound him out, because I don't think that Buday has ever really been rocked that I've seen. Maybe in that Jake Collier fight towards the end, but I think Buday is the better fighter. I think that he's got the perfect game plan to just grind on somebody, make Gaziev work, and just wear him out. Like you said, his Gaziev's threat level goes down significantly after that first round, and that's when Buday starts to pick up. The line movement's a little concerning for sure. That being said, like, I might find myself on Buday as well. It's just one of those sloppy heavyweights fights that I've been burned a few times now, and it's just tough to want to put my hard-earned money on that.
So you have cashed a decision ticket on him before, and here's your little read on the undefeated fighter not knowing how to lose inside the distance.
Ooh, dude. Okay, I don't know. You might talk me into it for real. But yeah, Buday will be the pick for me, I think.
Like it.
Moving up to the featherweight division, Andre Fili taking on Lucas Almeida. This is the second time that this fight has been booked. Fili pulled out with an eye injury the first time. I know that Fili's been a long-standing UFC fighter, but truthfully, I think that he should consider hanging it up if if he loses this fight, or he'll at least he's at the risk of getting cut if he drops this fight. I know he's only 33 years old, but he's approaching 3 years and 7 fights without a decisive win on the books. Funny enough, this is also kind of a make or break fight for Lucas Almeida in some way. This is a winnable fight for him, and I think he shows promise at the UFC level, but he's 1-2 now against UFC competition. And, I do think that this is somewhat of a comeback fight for him again after getting absolutely broken by Sabatini. That's a really tough matchup, and I know Sabatini is not got a great chin that we saw in his last fight, but if he's not getting touched, he is going to put that wrestling pressure on you. And he just broke Lucas Almeida. That was a tough one to watch. Andre Fili, he does have good takedowns. He's pretty strong, but he does tend to fall off. And I think that if Lucas Almeida can withstand that early grappling pressure of him, I think that he could start finding the chin of Fili and start touching him up on the feet. I do think that this is a fan-friendly matchup right here. Neither of these guys take their foot off the gas. But Andre Fili, 10 double-digit losses on the record now. Yeah. That's not a good look. The blueprint's out there, and I think that Lucas Almeida still has some potential. So I like Almeida at this point in his career. I think it's going to be a really tough fight, and you can get Almeida at dog money. So that's where I'm leaning for sure.
I think picking a money line side's a little bit tricky because I think in hindsight the winner looks like a real big favorite. I think this could look like the Brito fight where the forward pressure of Lucas Almeida just gets to Fili, and I think he bonks him on the chin. But man, there's been times where Fili shows up like the Pineda fight where he looks as sharp as can be, man. And then you talk about the potential of a clear grappling advantage for Andre Fili. It would be very smart for him to take that approach here. I struggle really to pick a winner, but I see a ton of finishing upside for both of these guys. Like I think Almeida can knock him out. I think Fili can submit him here. So I've put 1.5 units on the under 2.5 at -145. I'm expecting some violence here in this fight. And as the week kind of grows closer, I can't bank on Andre Fili to mix in those takedowns, man. I really do think Lucas Almeida might catch the chin the same way like Joe Anderson Brito did. So I think I'm on the dog with you as well. I'm more passionate about the under 2.5 there, though. Moving down to a flyweight fight, one I'm really excited for, man. We got Tagir Ulanbekov taking on Cody Durden. Excited for, man, because Cody Durden's come through as an underdog for me before, and I was tempted to go back to the well on him as at the money line price here. Regardless of the outcome, Cody's fighting for my dollar, hard 3 rounds, and outside of Nate Maness's first cut to 125 pounds, man, Tagir is not much of a finisher, a guy pretty much that struggles to cover his price tag in a lot of fights as well. A lot of these fights are real close decisions with like Nascimento and Bruno Silva. He's lost to Tim Elliott and Zhalgas Sumagulov, whether, that was controversial or not. It's a loss on the record. I've never really considered Ulanbekov to be the top pressure wrestler of some of the guys he trains with. And I do think if that wrestling gets negated by Cody Durden, I think the fight plays out very, very closely on the feet. And that's why I do think there could be some value at +140 on Cody. The guy, very good wrestler. He's now down at ATT. I think he's made clear improvements in both, just overall game, cardio, and everything. I do kind of think Cody has a more pop on his shots. I think if somebody were to go down to shots here, I do think it's Tagir. But I also think, Tagir is kind of a submission threat against Cody, who kind of leaves the neck out. You can't deny the guy's toughness, but round 1 against Jake Hadley does end in a guillotine. Round 2, he's in an arm bar. His submission defense leave some things to be brushed up on. I really want to pick Cody Durden, and I think I'm going to side with Cody Durden because I think the line is a little bit wide. But I took the +3.5 point spread on him here. I think there's plenty of ways I can cash that. I think there's a way Cody Durden wins round 1, drops the last 2. I think the scorecards could just be really hairy, be a split decision. I even think there's a chance Cody Durden could get robbed here just because of who Ulanbekov's associated with. So opted to take the point spread on Cody Durden instead of the dog odds, unfortunately. I think we see it differently, man, but give me Cody Durden this Saturday.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are seeing this fight go into decision. I think that, Ulanbekov is a product of having a Russian last name And so the price tag is always too high for him. But finally, the market is kind of adjusted, and I think we're getting a really good buy low spot for him. I looked down Tagir's record. The Tim Elliott fight, we'll call it a wash. It wasn't a loss, but we'll call it a wash. And then I look at Alana Cemento and Bruno Silva, and I hold both of those guys higher than I hold Cody Durden. Cody Durden's made a really good name for himself in the UFC against the matchups that he's had. But, Carlos Mota, JP Buys, Charles Johnson, those aren't high caliber fighters by any means. And Tagir Ulanbekov, with the submission threats, I think that he's on the same level as Jimmy Flick, not Mohamed Mokaev, but similar. I do think that he's going to be looking for those submission attempts. And Cody Durden, after that first round, he does start to slow down. He becomes much more predictable, and because he doesn't have the offensive striking to stand with the best of them, I do think that Tagir is going to start figuring him out as the fight goes on, and eventually Cody's going to slip up and Tagir is going to lock up a choke. So yeah, I'm on the Tagir Ulanbekov side. I'm not going to be playing the money line. I think I'm just going to be shooting for a submission prop at like plus 300 or something like that. So I like that. It might not even be played for me, but this is a good fight. Not one that I have a lot of conviction on, but I do like the Tagir side. Moving up to the light heavyweight division, Alonzo Menifield taking on Dustin Jacoby. I think that there's two different ways that this fight goes. I could see Dustin Jacoby chopping away at the lead leg of Alonzo Menifield really, really early and completely stifling the attack of Menifield. He's not going to be able to move as much. He's not going to be able to get as much power. And then Dustin Jacoby just chipping away at him, and maybe even eventually opening him up towards the second and third round and finding that kill shot. On the other end, I think Alonzo Menifield has the power to knock out anybody, and Dustin Jacoby has shown some chin issues in the past. So I've been looking at this fight. Fight ends by TKO. The Menifield TKO at plus 500, I think, is off because I do think that that's his only path to victory. Yep. I don't really see him being good enough to take him down and hold him down. Dustin Jacoby does a pretty good job of working his way back up to the feet. And then I also don't really see him, like putting up a lot of volume against Dustin Jacoby and outstriking the kickboxer. So everybody's got a punching chance in the UFC, but Alonzo Menifield's a little bit higher than a lot of people. So I like the fight ends by TKO and the Menifield TKO at plus 500.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that plus 500 because I have that written in my notes as well. It's a crazy number for what I would imagine is his path to victory 99% of the time here, and probably even spice it up and make it round one, in my opinion. I think similar to the Gaziev and Buday fight, I think after round one, it's going to start to massively swing in the favor of Dustin Jacoby here. I don't really think Alonzo, like you said, has the wrestling to make this fight tricky. I don't really think he has the cardio to make it tricky. I feel like he is round one or bust here. And if the fight's going to play out on the feet, I do have to get to the Dustin Jacoby side, who I feel like is the better kickboxer, better defensively, good volume. And I do think that calf kick, like you said, that's going to chop him down with, it's going to take a lot of the power out of Alonzo as the fight progresses. One thing that kind of makes me, I've kind of looked at Dustin Jacoby by decision because he really a lot of times is more than content in a big cage to pop on the outside. But, man, recently I was watching his fights back, and the Jung fight, the Kennedy fight, they're steps in the right direction, man. I feel like he's sitting down on his punches more. Maybe it was the Khalil Roundtree fight that he was like, shit, I can't let these fights go to decision anymore. I don't know, but it definitely looks like he's gunning for a finish more than he was in his first couple UFC fights. So I actually think that round 2 or 3 TKO for Jacoby is a little bit live. He's the side, ultimately just kind of torn how I'm going to have some action on it, though.
I also don't think that Alonzo, I think he lacks the diversity of his entries. I think that Dustin's going to pick that up really quickly. And if that lead leg is compromised, yeah, I'm with you, dude. The TKO is going to be open there for Jacoby. It's just whether or not he wants to, he's got to risk it to be able to get it. And he has been screwed by the judges. So I hope that he's got in the same mindset where he knows finish is the best way to do this,
Good stuff. I like it. Man, Casey O'Neill versus Ariane Lipski. Complete pass for me. I just, truth be told, I do think Ariane Lipski at dog odds, the way she's looked in her last 2 could be where the value is on this fight. I've never really been one that's sold on Casey O'Neill. I think the striking of her looks pretty non-existent. Casey O'Neill winning is pretty reliant on Casey O'Neill getting the fight down to the mat. Seems kind of one-dimensional to me. You throw in the ACL injury, the fight against Jennifer Maia. You know, Maia cemented herself as like a top 5, 6, 7 fighter for a while now, but I don't know, man. There was definitely some ring rust there. She looked slow. Wasn't the best look for a girl who was coming in at 2-1 odds or something again. With Lipski, she's made the move to American Top Team. And, dude, it does look like she's turned a corner. She was a girl who really struggled with the takedown defense, and I think she stuffed like her last 23 takedown attempts or something, man. The fights against Aldrich and Gatto steps in the right direction, man. And I do feel like if O'Neill is not able to get this fight down, she loses a striking match to Lipski 100% in my eyes. I think what I've decided to do with this one here to lay off pre-fight, if I see Lipski stuff the first or second takedown in this fight, though, I think I might try to get in on her live. So I'm actually gonna side with Ariane Lipski to get the job done. I'm gonna go by decision, but at the same time, the under at plus money there is kind of tempting as well. I don't have too much confidence on how the fight's gonna play out, but I'm gonna side with Lipski, man.
Yeah, so I think that Lipski is a great hammer, not a good nail. You know, and I think that, you know, we've seen that in all three of her her last 3 losses being by finish. Casey O'Neill, she's a hammer, dude. She's an absolute hammer. Yeah, she really is. And I think that there's going to be a significant size advantage once we see the face-offs. And I think that Casey O'Neill, I liken her much closer to Antonina Shevchenko, Montana De La Rosa, Priscilla Cachoeira, just being that aggressive fighter, being able to kind of lead the dance. I think that she's going to lead the dance against Ariane Lipski. And Lipski, yeah, she's looked really, really good against JJ Aldridge, you know, but that's she was plus 300 something. JJ Aldridge doesn't really have much finishing upside. Melissa Gatto, that's a good win, but I also think that Gatto kind of gave her the fight that she needed to give her to be able to win that fight. I don't think Casey O'Neill's going to give her that fight, man. I think Casey O'Neill's going to go in there, try and bulldoze her. And like you said, like if Lipski can keep the fight on the feet, there's certainly some, you know, some things about Casey O'Neill's game that I don't necessarily love, but she's so young that I do expect her to continue to improve. And although Lipski has also looked like she's improved, I think that this is a Casey O'Neill smash spot right here. Not that I'm going to be laying minus 190, but hell, I think if she gets on top, gets her to the ground and gets on top of her, I think it's going to be a short night. So I'm with you on the under in that fight, but I also think that there's a lot of finishing upside for Casey O'Neill specifically.
I like it.
So yeah, I'm on the Casey O'Neill side. It's a girl fight, so I'm not going to be too exposed. I said that last week and had like
I was just about to say.
So no, who knows? But in my head, I'm only thinking about like 1.5 units on the under, and then Casey O'Neill by finish, you know, something like that. Moving up the card to the bantamweight division, Cody Garbrandt taking on Brian Kelleher. This is a weird fight. What is it lined at right here? Okay, so Garbrandt minus 185. That makes sense, dude. I think that Garbrandt's a significantly better striker. He has the wrestling in his back pocket, always has, but rarely uses it. One thing that I do think that's going in the favor of Brian Kelleher is he does bring just like a kill or be killed type mentality when he goes out there. He's trying to be the hammer himself. And I think that Cody Garbrandt, I mean, we've all seen it. He's got chin issues, man. Yeah. And then he also has a little bit of fight IQ issues. Like when he does get touched up, he kind of drops the game plan and he'll start brawling. And Brian Kelleher isn't somebody that you want to start brawling with. So for me, it's a tough one because Cody should win this fight. But I do think that Brian Kelleher is going to bring the fight to him. This might be another spot where I'm kind of, looking at that under. But as far as picking a side, I got to go with Cody Garbrandt. I'm not stoked laying 2-1 on him, but he definitely is the pick in this matchup.
Yeah, man, the old Cody was one of our absolute favorites, and I'll never forget the night he cashed the ticket for me over Dom Cruz. Looking back at one of the more impressive performances from an underdog, to date. And I don't want to say the decline is the right word. You kind of touched on both of it. It's not only just a chin issue, but it's an arrogance issue to stand there and trade. That's been his downfall. That lost 5 of his last 7 fights or something, and a lot of those being TKO'd in at flyweight, which is also experiment that he dropped down there. I don't know, man. Cody's head is a little bit. I think it's tricky to see where Cody's head's at because I don't think he's ever making a title run again. And how motivated do you get for Trevin Jones and Brian Kelleher and stuff anymore? The Trevin Jones fight, though, it did show me that Cody can be composed. Trevin's not that good of a fighter, but Trevin hits hard. And, Trevin can be down in a fight and show you that he can come back and hit you one time. I mean, I did feel like there was opportunity for Trevin Jones to catch him there, and Cody looked far more composed in that fight. I do think, again, step in the right direction for him. I think his hands are faster, cleaner, underrated wrestling. To me, he just seems like the all-around better fighter. Kelleher on the L2, pulled out of his last 2. I do feel like Cody could be catching Brian Kelleher at the right time to come out on top. But, man, it's hard to think if Cody can even take a punch anymore, man. Like you said, couldn't be laying 2-1 there, man.
Yeah. I'm totally with you. I'm with you.
Looks like this is the prelim main event now. Maybe they'll do some reshuffling. We got Irene Aldana taking on Karol Rosa. I honestly, man, I didn't do too much tape on this fight. Just being dead serious. I don't plan on betting Irene Aldana at chalk, but I do feel like Irene Aldana's kind of always been this, the superior fighter of the two, the one who's got the better footwork, taller, longer, uses that jab and boxing well. She's really training at a great camp who's on fire right now. Recently, man, I don't know if Aldana's just not looked that great. I backed her against Macy Chiasson. That was the luckiest ticket I've probably ever cashed in my life. And I know that Chiasson's a big woman who looked to get her down to the mat, something Karol Rosa might not be as successful doing. But I don't know, man. Earlier in the week, I was a little bit more confident in Aldana than I am now. Rosa's going to kind of match her in the volume. She's a little bit shorter. I think she's going to be strong in the clinch. She could find cage time. Aldana by decision is my pick. I spent enough time on it, though, man. I really don't care too much about that fight.
Yeah. I think if Aldana can keep it on the feet, especially at range, that she would have a lot of success here. We've seen her, land that power shot on a couple of girls. She does. She's one of the few women, just blanket women, that can knock people out on the feet. And I think that Karol Rosa could get caught at some point with that. That being said, if Rosa comes in and grinds on her, makes this fight dirty, we could be looking at a split decision. And you sure as hell don't want to be laying minus 185 on a split decision. So while I'm picking Aldana, I do think that Rosa can make this fight close. But Aldana having the finishing upside, and then also I think she's going to be pretty significantly bigger. I could be wrong, but whenever they're in there, I think that she could ward off a lot of the grinding attempts, the attempts to push her up against the cage. And if she is able to get at range, you could start piecing up Karol Rosa, who I've never really held in too high regards. Let's see, moving up to the main card, we open up in the featherweight division between Josh Emmett and Bryce Mitchell. It was a tough fight, man. Josh Emmett, he's had the word retirement in his mouth, for the last 3 fights, it seems like, man. He's always like, man, if I don't get it in this run, or if I don't get this fight, I'm thinking about hanging it up, and he keeps on coming back for more. This seems like a fight where, if he's able to stuff the takedown, he's going to make Bryce look like a little boy. I love Thug Nasty. I love Bryce Mitchell. But if he doesn't get the takedown and he's forced to stand on the feet against Josh Emmett, I think he's going to sleep, dude. He doesn't have much of a striking skill set at all. That being said, he usually gets people to the ground. I know that in the Ilia Topuria fight, that wasn't the case, but he also talked about him being sick before that fight. And Ilia Topuria is about to fight for a title.
I was about to say, that's Ilia Topuria.
Yeah.
You see what he did to Josh in that too.
Right. So that being the only loss on his record, I think that there's, not much that you can take from that. But so outside of the times where Bryce isn't able to get the takedown and he is on the feet, I think that he's a really, really good fighter, man. He's extremely strong. He's real big for the weight class. And if he just continues to go to the well, Josh Emmett's the kind of guy who at 39 years old or whatever, however old he is, he's not really adding much more to his game. And he's always been this power puncher who at 145 pounds, that's a tough one to rely on, dude. Not a lot of power punchers finishing guys at 145 pounds. So Bryce Mitchell is the pick for me. If you're playing Emmett, I think the knockout's where it's at. You can get that at like plus 440. I think that that's live, dude, because if he's able to stuff just a few takedowns, if he lands that right hand, Bryce doesn't have the striking defense to avoid it. I don't know, dude. I'm on the Bryce Mitchell side. I do think that he'll end up cooking him and Emmett will give up and retire. Hopefully that's what happens. But I think the plus 440 for Emmett is kind of where I'm looking at, or I'm laying off the fight.
Great number for what I also see as this guy's only path to victory here as well. You know, outside of a TKO on the feet, I don't really like the complete game of Josh Emmett. I don't see him getting the job done many other ways. You talked about him speaking on retirement, 40 years old. You know, now he's getting matched up with contenders and things. I don't know, man. You know, Bryce, while he does kind of suck on the feet, I mean, he did kind of sting Ilia Topuria a couple times with a 1-2. He did drop Edson Barboza with a 1-2. It's like he gets you to think about the grappling so much that it opens up his hands just a little bit. But he's definitely not the same TKO threat of Josh Emmett. I do expect Bryce to get the fight down to the mat, but Josh Emmett is a tough SOB, man. So I like Bryce Mitchell to win a close, probably not a close decision. I do think he finds a lot of top time here, so I'm gonna go with a pretty clear decision for Old Bug Nasty Saturday. And then Paddy the Baddie Pimblett taking on Tony Ferguson. Man, I just truth be told, I would love to see Tony Ferguson win this one. The guy's lost 6 fights in a row. It does seem like this is the last one before he's on his way. The old El Kukui that we all knew and loved is gone, man. He's washed up. But I really would love Tony Ferguson to come through on Saturday, man. One of the best gas tanks the sport has ever seen. Some of the sneakiest front chokes as well. He's always been extremely hittable. It's just now it's starting to take more of a toll on him. You know, he's not being able to wear the shots as good. And, you know, even being submitted in his last 2 fights, not a good look for him. So Paddy's clearly the A side for me. He's the one the UFC wants to win. I feel like this was the biggest name they could give Paddy Pimblett that he likely stands a really good chance of winning. I think he holds a clear power advantage. I do think he's got some sneaky subs that he could even submit Tony after he hurts him on the feet. It is a big step up. And again, I would love Tony Ferguson to come through, but I got Paddy inside the distance, man. I think it's hard to think that Tony isn't just washed up at this point.
Yeah, dude, I have to agree. Not to mention the UFC's path for Paddy is, you know, it's laid out for him, man. You don't get to fight. Nobody gets to fight as easy competition as Luigi Vendramini, Vargas, Levitt. And even though Gordon is a good fighter, he doesn't offer much as far as being a specialist anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Tony Ferguson, yeah, he's over the hill, man. I also have the Paddy by submission. Look, man, he's getting submitted by Bobby Green.
I was just about to say the same shit.
I'm almost positive that Paddy Pimblett can sub Tony Ferguson. He can get him to the mat. And, since that Justin Gaethje fight, Tony's looked like a shell of himself. And it's sad to see because I can't really see him holding down like a normal job. So, like, fighting does seem like all he's got, dude. And that's a tough look. So, yeah, I've got Paddy Pimblett. The submission price.
PFL $1 million winner, Tony Ferguson.
Man, it's not even that, man. Maybe KSW, but even then, it's like I'm not
Alaskan
sure.
FC.
Yeah, maybe Alaskan FC. That's where Tony's about to run it. I like that. But yeah, Paddy Pimblett submission plus 260. When we just saw fucking Bobby Green submit him, I think that's a good price.
Good stuff.
Moving on to the next fight. It's just banger after banger at this point. Right. 170 pounds, Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Stephen Thompson. I mean, This seems like the UFC's punishing Stephen Thompson for not accepting the Michel Pereira fight.
Exactly what I'm thinking too.
That being said, you look at the people in the 170-pound division, his options. This might be one of the better fights for Stephen Thompson. Rakhmonov is kind of one of these guys where if he's not actively pursuing a takedown, he can get kind of like lumbering, just walking towards his opponent, not really using head movement. And we saw that in the Jeff Neal fight where, when Jeff Neal was able to keep it on the feet, he was touching up Rakhmonov. Now, it helps that Rakhmonov has an iron chin wherever the hell he's from. He eats shots. I don't see a lot of opportunity for Wonderboy to be able to knock him out. But I do see Stephen Wonderboy kind of coaxing him in to these traps and him exploding and being able to land a couple of really good shots. I actually think that this fight is going to hit the over. I'm kind of looking at the over 1.5, over 2.5. I know that there's a lot of talk about Rakhmonov finishing it, but if he's not actively pursuing the takedown and trying to submit Wonderboy Thompson, I think that Wonderboy on his feet is evasive enough to kind of point fight. So I'm curious to see how this one plays out. Wonderboy's never been submitted. He's only been knocked out once, and this is a huge stepping stone for Rakhmonov. I think that this is a similar fight to the Jeff Neal fight, and that one was close. And then you look at Stephen Thompson, and he's in my opinion, a significantly better striker than Jeff Neal. So I think that he could draw this fight out, show Shavkat where he has some holes, and even if Shavkat is able to get the W, it'll be a great learning experience and a good fight for us to draw from as he pursues this title run.
So I think Shavkat gets the job done inside the distance. Just truth be told, I think if he lands the right hand that Woodley landed or Kevin Holland landed, I think he takes advantage of it on the mat and submits Wonderboy. I think if he finds the top time of Gilbert Burns or Bilal Muhammad, I think he finds the submission on Wonderboy. Each time I see Khamzat Chimaev step into the octagon and look a little bit more human, I start to think that Shavkat Rakhmonov might be the real 170-pounder that we need to keep our eyes on. I really, watching back his tape, I think the guy can do it all. And I just love his instincts for fighting. Like, he knows he's 16-0. He knows he's finished all these fights. He's just given us a war with Jeff Neal. And the instincts to get on the back and get that choke, like, he just has great fighting instincts, man. I love what I see from Shavkat. I think he's the next welterweight champion. I honestly see why Leon's talking about going up to middleweight if he wins, because this is who's waiting on him next. I do think that 62% implied odds is a little bit low. With him being 17-0 with 17 finishes, I do think you can get closer to the 70% on the Shavkat inside the distance, just truth be told. The 40-year-old Wonderboy, his path to victory, man, is to dance around the outside and win a decision. But I think he gets beat up on the clinch, beat up on the mat. Man, I like Rakhmonov to get the job done here. First title fight.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough to say that about Rakhmonov whenever he hasn't, in my opinion, Alex Oliveira, Prazeres, Harris, and Magny. It proves that he can get the finish. Like Magny especially is a tough guy to finish, but he hasn't faced that upper echelon. And Jeff Neal being kind of like the Khamzat Chimaev Gilbert Burns fight where we finally saw him look human. Well, if this went to decision like it was supposed to, like, let's be real, 4 minutes, 17 seconds around 3, I wonder what this line looks like. Like, if he doesn't continue this finishing streak, I wonder if he'd be getting as much praise as he is now. And I think that Wonderboy Thompson has proven himself way more than Jeff Neal in his career. So I think that this is his toughest fight to date, and how close it was to go into decision in the last one, Wonderboy being notoriously hard to finish. Yeah. I don't know. We see it a little differently, but this is going to be an excellent fight for sure.
Killer fight, man. And down to flyweight for the first title fight of the night. One of the better fights of the card, man. Alexandre Pantoja taking on Brandon Royval. Watching that fight back this week, I do get people taking the shot at plus 300 on Royval. It was a ridiculous pace, and it did start to look like things were maybe starting to swing in the direction of Brandon Royval in that second round. I think Pantoja's the better fighter here, man. Royval, I think he just relies on his unorthodoxness to kind of get the job done. I don't think he's very technical, and if he's made to fight a technical fight, I don't think he gets the job done here. I think if Pantoja is able to slow the pace down, I think he looks far more technical and accurate with his shots on the feet. I thought the last time out, 5 rounds with Brandon Moreno, one of the better, Brandon Moreno just got through with like 7 fights in a row that were 5 rounds. He's a great high-paced fighter. I thought Pantoja's cardio looked good, man. I think Pantoja's the more durable fighter. And I do see, like when I look at how guys get the job done, I think Pantoja can knock him out. I think Pantoja can submit him. I think Pantoja can win a decision, whereas Royval, I think he's pretty reliant upon a knockout win here. And Bontorin and Schnell, I give him the Nicolau finish. Props to you, man. You and I were both on Nicolau that night, but Bontorin and Schnell, is that really title worthy? I don't know, man. I do like Pantoja. I don't know if I lay the -180, -190. I'm likely just going to sit back and enjoy this fight, but yeah, man, I'm going to side with Alexander Pantoja to keep his belt.
I don't really love laying juice in super high-level fights, but
Yeah.
I'm honestly not sure that Royval should be getting this title shot. I mean, obviously the Nicolau win's really, really huge, but he's always, like you said, you touched on it, he's always been really finish-reliant, and Alexander Pantoja having never been finished, I just don't see Royval winning minutes here. And then you throw on top of it that Pantoja's already submitted him. After coming off of his last fight against Moreno, he looks tired, but he's still able to keep up this like insane pace. Man, I think that he breaks Royval. This is for what it seems like to me, a buy low spot, and a lot of people just love Royval because of the way that he fights, his style. It's super fan friendly, and I think that there's a lot of people that want to back him because they like him. But Pantoja in my head is the clear side here, and we're getting somewhat of a buy low spot for, what are we looking at? Yeah, like under 2-1. Like, I don't know, I'll probably find myself on it. Flyweights that have decent reads historically on flyweights, and I do like Pantoja here. Don't love laying -190 in title fights, but it is what it is.
I'd like to hear you on the same side.
Moving up to the main event of the evening in the welterweight division, Leon Rocky Edwards taking on Colby Chaos Covington. I think that Leon Edwards has been training for guys like Colby Covington for like the last 3 years, and he's kind of got the blueprint down. I think that Colby Covington is going to do what he always does and go out there, shoot for takedowns, and try and drown his opponent with pace. But yeah, Leon Edwards has proven that he can go 5 rounds. I think that Kamaru Usman's actual takedown threat is a little bit more than Colby Covington. That's not that he's going to be able to, or that Kamaru was able to push the same pace that Colby's going to be pushing. But I think that his actual ability to get the fight to the ground is more so than Covington. Leon Edwards, if the fight is on the feet, he's going to be touching Colby. Like Colby has never really had great defense. It's just whenever he's able to work on the inside and grind it out. But offensively, he's pretty he doesn't have a lot of different offensive attacks, It's just pressure. It's pressure, and Leon seems to, in my opinion, seems to know how to deal with that pressure at this point in his career. He's continually developing, and then Colby Covington, only fighting, once a year, maybe. It's not a great look, dude. So I think that Leon Edwards should win. I hope he doesn't. I'm really rooting for Colby Covington, but I do think that this is, sharp money's on Leon Edwards. That's why we're not seeing the line move, even though everybody else that we see is on the Colby Covington side. Every single one of our friends on the Colby Covington side. And I do think that that's sharps versus Joes, man. I think that the sharp money's on Leon Edwards. So again, it's a title fight. I'm not looking to lay a bunch of juice, but I do think that he is the rightful favorite. So I'm leaning Leon Edwards here, -150 or better. I'd consider it, but as of right now, I do not have a bet. Leon Edwards is the side.
Man, I was kind of nervous to tell you about my breakdown of this fight, but you pretty much said everything that I was going to say on this fight, man. It's like, we're both massive Colby fans, but I think the fight is kind of lined pretty accurately, man. When Leon was about minus 135, my heart goes one way here, but my gut is on the Leon Edwards side. For Colby, he has the style of fight that could cause Leon issues. Leon likes to use his kicking range and keep his range. And Colby does have that pressure wrestling that when styles make fights, typically you want to lean that direction. And, I do feel like the fight's going to be played out pretty closely. It could really go to decision at a high clip. And so I'm struggle here because I do think there is some value on Colby Covington. And that's a line that I've kind of been keeping an eye on this week, because if it hits a plus 150, a plus 160, I might have to get on Colby just solely off the basis that I think it's going to be a close decision. But I do feel he's a far more one-dimensional fighter here, the one who's going to struggle to make the mid-fight adjustments. You talk about him being 36, inactive. His wins have aged horribly. He's a guy that's now coming up on his third title shot. That's a lot of pressure, man. 3 title fights, and, what if you come up short here? You're in front of President Trump, who you've been talking up all week. There's a lot of pressure on Colby to come through on Saturday. When I look at Leon, I just see a more complete fighter, man. I see a guy who's got really underrated wrestling. We just don't have to see it a lot of times. And he's a far better striker if this gets stuck out at range. I always prefer the southpaw, touching him up with kicks. I think he's going to beat that lead leg of Colby up. We've seen him be able to set a head kick up. The guy remains dangerous until the 24th minute of the fight. My one knock for Leon is I see him calling out Strickland and Duplessis, and I don't know if he's overlooking Colby, not wanting to cut the weight anymore.
Or see Shavkat coming up.
Shavkat, yeah, exactly. To me, I don't like to see him not focus on the fight in front of him on Saturday. So that's pretty much my only real knock on Leon. I think the guy's an incredible fighter. I cashed on him the first time against Usman. We cashed on him by decision against Usman in London the second time. I do feel like I got a good read on Leon Edwards. So, you know what? You want my official pick, who I think is going to win? I hate picking against Colby, but I think Leon Edwards is going to get the job done as well, man.
Here's another reason why Leon's looking past him. When you look at the top 5 of that division, Kamaru, Bilal Muhammad, Colby Covington, and Gilbert Burns, I mean, Leon's beat all of the top 5, I know that we didn't get to see that Bilal Muhammad fight play out, but he was whooping his ass, and I think that it wasn't going to change over the course of that fight. So, and
Leon's a great fighter.
Right. And then the next guy after Gilbert Burns is Shavkat Rakhmonov, and the UFC is pushing for him. And I truthfully, I don't even blame Leon, but I do think that he might be looking to try some new things, especially when Sean Strickland is your middleweight champion in the weight class up. He's not taking you down, and I'm sure that Leon would love to have a striking match with Sean Strickland. So I'm on the Leon side. Not sure how heavy yet. Maybe face-offs will tell me a little bit more. I like the fact that if you're on the Leon side, Dana denied Colby bringing President Trump on the walkout. Yeah. I don't know why, but I don't think that Dana has much faith in him either for some reason. So I'm on the Leon Edwards side with you, man.
I like to hear that. We're down to 13 fights after unfortunately losing Ian Gary. Still kind of picking and choosing. I think it's a tough week of bets, but honestly, man, it's a great week of fights to end 2023 on. Really excited for this Saturday. We got a couple weeks off, and we'll catch you guys in a few weeks back in 2024. See ya.
Peace.